I'm Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to Urban Health Weekly, where we talk about medical news and health topics that matter to you. I'm Tamara Thomas, and I'm here with Lou. How are you?
I'm doing great. I can't wait to get to it today. I'm full of all sorts of controversial statements.
I know, right? Looks like the highest court in the land saved abortion rights to fight for another day. What do you think?
Well, it seems to be like every judge is one-upping the other. So it started out at a lower court, and the next court reversed that decision, and somebody reversed the decision to reverse the decision. So it's moving all the way up there. From my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, and I can't even understand novels, law novels or law shows all too good. They kind of confuse me anyway. But from what looks like here is the Supreme Court seems to be taking the position that the courts get to rule, but until like some big adult court rules, that nothing.
Well, but
really
isn't the
change.
Supreme Court the big adult court?
Well, yes, but they don't. I think they had. They're still smarting from the Roe ruling, and they don't want to. It seems that they don't want to repeat that and come up with any more rulings on this subject. I think they're trying to figure out how to stay out of the abortion wars as much as possible.
Well, the decision avoids restrictions on widely used abortion pill while the appeals process plays out. For me, it's good as long as women aren't penalized for crossing state lines, but this is only the very beginning. So this is kind of like a stay, right?
Yeah, but there's two ways to look at it. Number one is, can the woman cross the state line? The other ruling is, can the product cross the state line? So this is the one where it's not the woman crossing the straight line, it's the product crossing the state line in order to get into the woman's hands. So,
well, I would think the woman would have to cross the state line if it's not allowed in her state.
I don't think so.
Because if everything kind of stays how it is, if certain states have ruled that you can't use it,
right,
then your neighboring state says, yeah, you can, then the woman would have to cross over and use it in the other state.
I think it's to get it in your mailbox, though. I mean, in this instance, you're getting and again, that's why I say I'm not a lawyer. In this instance, in order to get it in your mailbox, you don't have to cross state lines. You can get it in your mailbox, but the product can't be mailed to your house.
Yeah, well, we're going to keep our eye on this story. Let's see how this plays out. But listen to this one. This one is a juicy one. We talk about this all the time. The link between highly processed foods and brain health. And we talk about this all the time on the show. Right. We talk about ultra processed food and its effects on the body. Mm-hmm. Not so much, we don't talk about it so much on the mind, but this is an interesting article from the New York Times. All right, listen to this. Roughly 60% of the calories in the standard American diet comes from highly processed foods. We've known for decades that eating such packaged products, like some breakfast cereals, snack bars, frozen meals, and virtually all packaged sweets, among many other things, is linked to unwelcome health outcomes, like an increased risk of diabetes, obesity, and even cancer. But more recent studies point to another major downside to these often delicious, always convenient foods. They appear to have a significant impact on our minds, too. Research from the past 10 or so years has shown that the more ultra-processed foods a person eats, the higher the chances that they feel depressed and anxious. A few studies have suggested a link between eating UPFs, or ultra-processed foods, and increased risk of cognitive decline. UPFs make up a majority of the packaged foods you find in the frozen food aisles at grocery stores and on the menu at fast food restaurants. 70% of the packaged foods sold in the United States are considered ultra processed. Ooh, right, that's a high number.
Okay, let's put a little bookmark right there and get into this a little bit. last week. In fact, it wasn't even last week, because we were going to cover this story, but now this story even beats that story. The story came out that 60% of Americans' diets are either processed or ultra processed foods, which I was in shock. I said, we're eating that much junk?
Yeah, that's humongous. So there's minimally processed foods like fruits, vegetable, rice, and flour. Okay. Then there's processed food, which is oils, butter, sugar, dairy products, some canned foods, and smoked meats and fish. And then you got the ultra processed foods, which are high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils,
Right.
protein isolates, chemical additives like colors, artificial flavors, sweeteners, emulsifiers, and preservatives. So those are the three categories: is a minimally processed, processed, and then ultra processed, which are the really bad ones.
Yeah. So the good stuff, which is, stuff that grows from a tree, like an apple, grapes, strawberries, stuff like that. Let's call that healthy. Let's avoid pesticides and all that junk.
Well, that's why it's called minimally processed,
Yeah.
because there are pesticides and probably some growth stuff to
so
fertilizers, etc.
Now that we're in the warmer months, stuff like corn. Let's look at stuff that you would eat in a barbecue, like corn.
Is that considered minimally processed? Because a lot of it is GMO, genetically modified.
Well, if we're gonna go that route,
I'm just saying, we have to, we have to think about that. Would that be considered minimally processed, or would that be considered processed?
Well, I think
because once you get out of its natural state, then to me that's processed. If it's not how corn was intended to be, to me, but I'm not a food scientist, so okay, go ahead.
Here's the thing. I'm trying to avoid brands here and say, okay, I bought a pouch of this or that, but there's a difference between corn on the cob that you get in the supermarket, where you chuck the corn, or take the stuff off, or maybe some of it is pre-chopped, like if you go to one of the fancier restaurants where they do it for you and then they wrap it up, blah blah blah. So that stuff, I'm going to call it natural, even though it might have some
well, but you could get the organic the way nature intended,
right.
And then there's also the genetically modified.
So let's assume that
it's natural pesticides.
Yeah,
okay, so we're saying organic then. Okay, so let's say organic.
That
okay,
everything that we're getting is organic.
Okay.
So all those foods, the potato itself, all that stuff that you usually see in the supermarket when you first walk in. Most supermarkets I know have that section.
Right.
That stuff is, let's call it, safe.
Right.
Then you get into, if I'm going into like my typical supermarket, the way it goes is then you get into your meats, your fish.
Well, that's the perimeter. So that's one of the rules of thumb of shopping for food, by the way, is to shop the perimeter of the supermarket, because you do get the produce, then you go to the back, you get the meat, and then you go to the back end of the store and you get your dairy and
breads and dairy and eggs.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, for the most part.
And pretty much all supermarkets are set up the same way.
Yeah, let's assume that we're doing, healthy eating, et cetera, et cetera. So those are what's called your either non-processed or lightly processed foods, where something happened, but not too much has happened to it, and then you would check out. The rest of the place, there's something's been added to your food. Now, what the first study said is that 60% of everything we eat is either in that section, the section that's not the perimeter, which are the cans, the frozen foods, all that stuff.
The center of the supermarket.
Yeah, that whole center, 60%, which is amazing. I never would have thought it. I would have thought it was the other way around. I know me, it's like 70% is on the outside.
Well, 70% of the packaged foods sold in the United States are considered ultra processed.
Now we're getting into that center of the supermarket, 70% of that. And people don't feel like just because you go into a fast food place, the article notes is almost 100% ultra processed.
Yes.
And that's because, it has to be frozen. And even though you think you're getting something, it isn't what you think you get. So that chicken could be super processed with all sorts of nonsense that they put in there to add the flavors, to keep it preserved, to make it taste. Why do you think, like, again, can I say a brand name?
No, no, please, let's avoid
No
brands.
brand names.
Mhm.
So how do you think them hamburgers taste the same from store to store to store?
Oh, of course, that's because that's part of the science of food that I'm always talking about, where they try to create consistency across all their stores so that wherever you go in the country or the world, the food tastes the same. Now, if you travel to Europe, let's say, for example, the chains are going to be slightly different because they're not going to be as processed. They don't allow the same a level of ultra processing in their chains as we do here. But the point is that the reason these things are so consistent is because of food science, because these things are chemically made. And so it's an exact science of making sure the thing tastes the same each and every time. Well, they're increasingly edging out healthier foods in people's diets and are widely consumed across socioeconomic groups. Ultra-processed foods are carefully formulated to be so palatable and satisfying that they're almost addictive, said Dr. Eric Hecht, an epidemiologist at the Schmidt College of Medicine at Florida Atlantic University. The problem is that in order to make the products taste better and better, manufacturers make them less and less like real food. And that's what I've been trying to say for weeks and months, is that the food that you're eating is not food, it's science food. Recent research has demonstrated a link between highly processed foods and low mood. In one 2022 study of over 10,000 adults in the United States, the more UPF participants ate, the more likely they were to report mild depression or feelings of anxiety. New research has also found a connection between high UPF consumption and cognitive decline. Mm-hmm. A 2022 study that followed nearly 11,000 Brazilian adults over a decade found a correlation between eating ultra-processed foods and worse cognitive function, which is the ability to learn, remember, reason, and solve problems. While we have a natural decline in these abilities with age, we saw that this decline accelerated by 28% in people who consumed more than 20% of their calories from UPFs, said Natalia Gomez Gonçalves, a professor at the University of Sao Paulo Medical School and the lead author of the study. It's possible that eating a healthy diet may offset the detrimental effects of eating ultra-processed foods. This article goes on and on, but we're going to stop at this.
But let's look at it this way. They picked it, and this is a really interesting study because they picked a country where for a population that for a long time did not have a lot of processed foods in their diet and didn't have access to it. All of a sudden, that this access came in, and very little else changed except that these foods started to permeate. Guess what happened? Over a period of time, people got dumber and dumber. I don't know how else to say it, but their ability to learn declined. The decline that happens over age, over as one ages, accelerated.
20% increase. Jesus.
I mean, we all know that, the older you get, the more difficult it is to learn new tasks. And think of it as a filing cabinet. A neurologist once explained to me this way: when you're young, your filing cabinet is empty, so things are easy to find. As you get older, your filing cabinet of your brain becomes
more complex,
more cluttered, and things get out of order a little bit. And all of a sudden, in order to get to the things, it takes you longer and longer. As you get into your 60s and 70s, that usually that filing cabinet is pretty full. And the ability to get to data and all of that is slowed down, A, by the amount of stuff that's in your filing cabinet, and B, by your cognitive abilities. Now, if your cognitive abilities are going to slow down when you're young, what's that going to do to you when you're older later on?
Well, this is interesting that you brought that up, because now we're talking about the rise in dementia that we're seeing, right? And so we're seeing a rise in cancers among younger people. We're seeing a rise in dementia among people who are younger than 60s, like you said.
Right.
And I'm putting it out there that this is all related to our food supply. I've been saying this. I'm going to keep saying this. And one thing I learned a long time ago, if you can't pronounce the ingredients on the label, please don't buy it.
Right.
Just don't not. But the problem though, it becomes murky when we eat out because, you know, the restaurants will tell you how many calories something has, but doesn't tell you what ingredients are in the food. And please don't think that, you know, unless you go to a restaurant that specifically says they use sustainable, organic, blah, 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 that you're getting the most wholesome ingredients. They're getting what they can afford for their budget so that they can turn a profit, which means you're not necessarily getting the best food. Maybe it tastes really good, but it's not the best quality food.
Yeah, you know, our animals are humanely you know, what does that mean, humanely? You know, so at the end of the day, there's a lot of catchphrases that are put into your food, and a lot of happy hands, and you know, green packaging and a little tree here and there.
But you
And
got to read the labels. You
that,
still have
you
to
know,
read the
all of a
labels.
sudden you say, hey, this is natural. Yeah, you know, more and more I see green packaging
Yes.
pop up, and what does that mean?
And
You know,
they say natural and homemade and all this other
and
stuff.
also, you know, I always go to my
All
business
natural.
days,
That's the catch-all.
be very careful, because what you know, companies do is they pay the supermarkets, or they use their influence to the supermarkets to make sure that their foods are put next to other foods or other places that are highly desirable.
And then what happens, that's right. And then what happens is the average consumer will look at the healthier food that's like maybe twice, you know, the price, and look at the package that looks very similar to the healthy one,
which is
a fraction of the price.
Right next to, because they say,
and it's all by design.
Yep.
And you think that you're getting something similar.
Because
it's insidious.
Many times, I run across this in the soda aisle all the time, in the water aisle all the time, where the specialists from the big soft drink companies are coming in there and repackaging. What they do is they come in and they reorganize the supermarket shelves for the supermarkets, and move their product next to other products that they want done. The same happens with the frozen foods. So all of a sudden, I've got this brand that I want to position it next to the organic stuff. The package is green, but guess what? It's not that healthy. So you have to be very, very careful when shopping now. And my feeling is I'm just staying away from anything in a bag. If it's in a bag and it's in the aisles and it's there, it's like, I'm going to stay away from it. And I'm going to try to make sure that most of the stuff that I buy from now on comes from something that I can recognize having grown from a tree not too long ago.
I would say eat as many fruits and vegetables as you can daily to offset any, because it's really hard in this fast-paced world to avoid processed and ultra-processed food. I mean, unless, you know, you're a chef and you work from home. I don't know. It's very difficult to avoid the processed stuff, as particularly if you live in an urban center. And so if you eat as many fruits and vegetables as you can, I'm not talking about canned stuff, although if that's all you can get, I'll take it. But, you know, the fresher, the better. If you can eat that, then you could save yourself a world of problems from ultra processed foods. Also, I think in general, we're doing a poor job in this country in educating people about what's bad for them. I don't know if that's by design or if that's because I don't know. I'm not sure why that is. Why I remember growing up, there was these PSA cartoons on Saturday morning. Do you remember the Sugar Demon? Do you remember that? Take that, Sugar Demon. Do you remember?
Barely.
But that was cool. That was cool back then, because even back then I learned about the effects of sugar, not on your diet necessarily, but on your teeth. It was like, you know, don't eat sugar. And that was like the first time that I ever saw television directly addressing why you shouldn't consume sugar and the importance of brushing your teeth and stuff like that, and went into detail of what happens when the sugar stays in your mouth and all the stuff. And they literally said, don't eat sugar or avoid sugar if you can. But you don't see that anymore. And I'm not sure what happened. Well, but even the ADA, the American Dietetic Association, has been
Yeah,
silenced by big food. So it's very
yeah.
hard nowadays to educate people because the
Mhm,
food lobby has just gotten so powerful
mhm.
and so rich, and people are willing to turn their blind eye, on their fellow man.
Right.
And a lot of people are just kind of fumbling around in the dark trying to figure this out.
Well,
And
yeah,
mhm.
yeah. And another advice that I can give people is, and this is all because we all have busy lifestyles and work and all that, but
And families and
and
so forth.
family and things like that. And I can talk here until I'm blue in the face, but if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But you might want to consider this. A lot of us hit the supermarket once a week. Guess what? When you hit the supermarket once a week, your strawberries can go bad after day 3. Some of these foods, your bananas are going to turn brown after day 4 or 5. Have a plan, or go 2 to 3 times a week and buy less things.
Yeah,
Uh,
but you know what? That's easy for some people to say because they have a little more free time. If you're working from, let's say, 8 to 6
mhm,
or 9 to 7, and then you got to pick the kids up from wherever, the sitter, or you got for sports or after school or whatever. Most people don't have that kind of time on the weekend. Some people, all they want to do is they just want to relax on the weekend, catch up on cleaning the house, catch up on their stories, whatever. A lot of people just don't have time to do
yeah,
that. And so that's why so many people, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just
yeah.
explaining
Well,
why
I'm
so
I'm
many
just saying
people
that.
turn to processed
Yeah,
foods to begin with
exactly.
because they figure, oh, it's packaged already for me. All I have to do is throw it into the microwave, and I've got a full meal to fill my belly and my children's
Right.
belly.
And you have a
And
lifestyle
it's
that
priced
says,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
that every Saturday between 9:30 and 11, I'm going to go to the supermarket and I'm going to buy all the things I'm going to need for the week. Guess what? You're going to tend to buy processed stuff because you got to make it last for a week.
Right, or
If you
more.
if you start thinking of smaller increments and say, let me buy for the next couple of days. I know it's hard, but you have to start thinking this way. Let me buy the stuff that I'm going to eat in the next couple, 2, 3 days. And then after 2, 3 days, I'm just going to hit somewhere close by that has more greens, more salads, things of that nature. You'll eat a lot healthier. Plus, you'll also do some more walking. Again, it's kind of hard. You're coming home from work, you might be tired, or you got, childcare responsibilities and things of that nature. And we do that, but the lifestyle that we've created is leading towards this. And I know that's not part of this story, but the higher incidences of colon cancer, the earlier onsets of dementia, and diabetes, and all the things that are on the rise, these are all things that are food related. So maybe not doing the supermarket thing once a week where you do a mega shop. Or some people even do it once a month. They go to the big box stores and they buy stuff for a month. Guess what? That stuff is really processed because it's gonna last a long time. They know it, and you're buying like a month's worth of whatever. Fill in the blank. I ain't putting a brand on it, but fill in the blank. It's not good for you.
You know what? I'm gonna say this too. I'm gonna put this out there, and I'm gonna say that um, our government has really done a terrible job of looking out for people, looking out for consumers. This government has put itself first and foremost, and has forsaken the people, because there's no reason why these little public service announcements that really educated people and educated, look, they've defunded so many things that were like healthy. Even the fact that it's cheaper, and I've talked about this before, that it's cheaper to get yourself a fast food meal than it is to buy a salad. That doesn't make any damn sense. They're subsidizing they're backing the wrong horses in this fight, and
Mhm.
it's to the detriment of people. And the only people that are profiting from this, well, I don't have to say, but you fill in the blank. It's not a coincidence that more and more young people are getting what's that procedure called when they get the stomach, the
Oh,
bypass?
the sleeve now. It's
Yeah, the sleeve. More and more young people are getting the sleeve. I mean, that's, look, I'm going back to the government again. Government needs to start sponsoring more education so that people are aware of the deleterious effects of ultra processed foods. I mean, man, come on. Stop all this posturing and stuff and like get with the program for real.
Okay, with that,
All right.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go to the supermarket and make copies of these articles and leave them all over the place.
Oh, people aren't gonna read these long articles, but you can
I'll
you
put a
can
coupon. You know what? I'll put a coupon.
we'll put a link on Urban Health Today and then you can read it there. All
All
right,
right.
so we're gonna take a break and we'll be right back. And we're back. And I think instead of a main topic, we'll focus on what's going on in the news because there's just so much going on. So we're just gonna do medical news of the week. All right, study offers concerning insight into how daily marijuana use can affect your health. Using marijuana every day can raise a person's risk of coronary artery disease, or CAD, by a third compared to those who never partake, a new study found. A growing body of evidence suggests that cannabis is not entirely without harm and may actually cause cardiovascular disease, said lead study author Dr. Ishan Paranipe, a resident physician at Stanford University.
Mm-hmm.
The study pulled data on people participating in the All of Us research program. I participate in that, by the way. Participants completed a survey on their cannabis use. The research team used, not in this particular study, but I do participate in the All of Us research. The research team used that information to place those who responded into 5 categories: daily users, weekly users, monthly users, those who use once or twice in 3 months, and those who never used. The researchers
Can I be a
then,
new category? Those who wish they used, but
that would fall under those
never
who never
used.
use, unless you're hanging out with people who use and you're getting contact
Yeah, I
high.
need new
But then
friends.
that's not, then that's not, then you can't really be counted as not using.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what category that falls into, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
The researchers then compared those categories with participants' medical records a few years later. They found that daily cannabis users were 34% more likely to be diagnosed with coronary artery disease than those who had never used the drug. People who used weed only once a month or less had no significant risk, the study found. The results held true even after researchers factored out other potential causes of coronary heart disease, such as age, sex, and major cardiovascular risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, obesity, smoking, and alcohol use. Why does marijuana appear to damage the heart and blood vessels? First, it increases heart rate and blood pressure immediately after each use, according to the CDC. Marijuana smoke also delivers many of the same substances researchers have found in tobacco smoke.
Mm-hmm.
These substances are harmful to the lungs and cardiovascular system, the agency says. There's more, but this is like the meat of the matter.
I mean, if smoking is bad for you, smoking tobacco, why wouldn't smoking a joint be just as bad? I mean, you can degree by 10 or 20%, but a lot of people think that smoking a joint is natural and tobacco is not. It's the same thing. It's basically the same process. You're just smoking a weed versus smoking a plant leaf.
For everyone who thinks that smoking weed is not unhealthy, I hope that this got your attention, because you now have proof positive that smoking anything regularly is not conducive to good health. If you must get high, I would suggest use some edibles. Thoughts?
But okay, um, the weed itself, the cannabis itself, not all the research is in, but the cannabis itself doesn't seem to be dangerous. But it's the process of ingesting it, which is the smoking.
Mm-hmm. Anything smoked, even meat.
Anything is smoked. I always used to tell people, why don't you just roll up a dollar bill and set it on fire and smoke that? Because this is costing you money.
Mm-hmm.
And just the fact that you're ingesting smoke time and time again every day, that's got to do something to the lining of your
Yes.
your throat, the lining of your bronchio, the lining of your lungs. What are you doing? I mean, it can't be good for you. It can't be good for you. It's like eating spicy foods every day. This is not a good idea.
Yeah. Also, I was reading an interesting article. I can't remember what paper it was, but it was one of the New York papers, and this guy was talking about the fact that now so many people are smoking marijuana that there's like this kind of zombie effect where like
Mhm.
customer service people are unresponsive, they get your orders wrong,
Mhm.
they just kind of like hang out, they make lots of mistakes, and he thinks that it's large part due to the open marijuana smoking. So
Mhm.
that's something
You know,
to think about. That whole stoner stereotype.
you
That's
know what?
something to think
That's
about.
funny because I haven't seen research on this, but
Mhm.
I just feel that more and more I'm getting a lot of stuff wrong. Like
Do
I'll
you
go.
smoke?
No, I don't. No, no, no. I'm not talking about me. I'm getting stuff wrong. Like when I order food, I'm getting stuff wrong when I
Oh, you mean
order.
like when you receive your order,
Yeah,
it's
when I
not
receive
correct.
my
Oh,
order,
okay, got it, got it, got
and
it, got it.
I can tell people, okay, I want avocado with that, and they say yes, and they act like they're writing it down, and then it comes without my avocado, or it comes and I stress something, no cheese with that, or I don't want powdered sugar with that,
You
or
don't want cheese with something? You want cheese with
well,
everything.
I'm trying to be healthy. So anyway, to get back to that, more and more, I've got the feeling that every time I order, it's like almost 50% of the time something is wrong. And this is not just one store.
Percent, that's huge.
It's little things. It's just little things, especially if especially if you're taking a menu item and saying, hold the tomatoes or this or that or a salad where you're pointing at stuff.
See, that's why I like touchscreen orders because it's right there in writing. And if they mess it up, you can say, look, it's right here.
Yeah, I think I'm almost going to that. I want to go back to the kitchen and watch them work. But
Oh, geez.
but
Then you may
that's
as well just
that.
make it at home.
And then lately,
Hmm.
when I've been getting like Amazon orders or whatever, or any type of order, there's been a higher rate of I didn't order this. Somebody packed it wrong.
Really?
Yeah, I mean just little things, like itty bitty things. The latest thing that I got wrong was a fish tank bite that I ordered.
Mm. Yeah, you know what? That happened to me. I ordered a certain size shoes for my daughter. I ordered like four and they sent two.
Mhm.
Like what? How do you mess that up so badly? Like that's so far
Yeah.
off.
And lately, when I order stuff, every once in a while, the error rate has been getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So yeah, I think there's something to what this guy said in his article about customer service being different. Is it
Mhm.
because people are smoking more? I don't know. Or is it because people are looking at their phones? Because yeah, there's that too.
Well,
Are
yeah.
people just checked out and so in their own little world in their heads that they're just not, I don't know.
Well, traffic accidents, pedestrians getting run over, and all that. I think a lot of that is phone related. I think people are just not paying attention.
It might be a combination of all of those things, but yeah, Jesus.
Ugh.
Anyway, moving on. How to lower your cholesterol naturally.
Mhm.
Having high blood cholesterol increases the risk for heart disease, which is the leading cause of death in the US, as well as for stroke, the fifth leading cause of death in the country, notes the CDC.
Mhm.
The major risk factors for high cholesterol include an unhealthy diet that's high in saturated and trans fats. See that they have to explain this. What does this mean in layman's
Mhm.
terms? And trans fats, a sedentary lifestyle that means sitting around, excessive alcohol consumption, chronic stress, smoking or exposure to tobacco smoke, and obesity. And they really shouldn't just limit it to tobacco smoke, but okay.
Mhm.
Cholesterol is a waxy fat like substance that is absorbed from the intestines during digestion, says Dr. Elizabeth Clotis, a Johns Hopkins trained cardiologist and founder of Step One Foods. It's also manufactured internally by the liver, contributing to around 80% of total cholesterol synthesis and
Mhm.
within every cell in your body, she adds. Most of the cholesterol circulating in your body is LDL. It's often dubbed bad cholesterol as LDL contributes to the buildup of fatty deposits in your arteries, leading to atherosclerosis. This narrows the arteries and increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, and peripheral artery disease. What makes high cholesterol more concerning is that it's a sneaky health hazard that typically has no visible symptoms. The only outwardly visible signs of very high cholesterol are fatty cholesterol deposits called xanthelasmas, usually on the eyelids or around the eyes, says Dr. Steve Gundry, cardiothoracic surgeon and author of New York Times bestseller, The Plant Paradox.
Yep. Now I want to take a break just so I can go look at my eyes, but let's power through it.
While certain risk factors like family history, gender, and age can't be controlled, incorporating heart-healthy habits into your everyday life may help keep those numbers in a healthy range. This is because your cholesterol levels are heavily influenced by your lifestyle, especially what you eat, says Dr. Clotis. Here are 5 ways to naturally lower your cholesterol, specifically LDL levels, according to heart specialists. Load up on fiber. Fiber from whole plant-based foods helps bind bile in the digestive system, which serves as a natural elimination pathway for LDL. The AHA recommends consuming 25 to 30 grams of dietary fiber from whole foods per day. Some of the best natural sources of fiber include avocado, apple, berries, Brussels sprouts, dates, whole grains like oats and barley, nuts, and seeds. Add phytosterols to your diet. Sterols, which are natural compounds found in plants, compete with bile cholesterol for reabsorption, thus helping lower LDL. According to the National Lipid Association, or NLA, eating at least 2 grams of plant sterols per day may lower your LDL-C by 5 to 10%. Foods like spinach, kale, carrot, olive oil, sweet potato, strawberry, and sunflower seeds are all good sources of phytosterols. Stick with unsaturated fats. LDL is removed from the bloodstream through LDL receptors that are found primarily in the liver. The more LDL receptors there are, and the more active they are, the more efficient the LDL removal process, leading to lower LDL levels, says Dr. Clotis. Saturated fats, which are fats that are solid at room temperature, like those found in fatty cuts of meat, butter, lard, cheese, and coconut oil, downregulate LDL receptors, leading to high circulating LDL, explains board-certified cardiologist. Favoring unsaturated fats, which are fats that are liquid in temperature, kind of like oils, instead can upregulate these receptors, which will consequently help lower your LDL levels. Some of the best sources of heart-healthy unsaturated fats include avocado oil, avocado and avocado oil, olive oil, peanut butter, walnut, almond, oily fish, sunflower oil, sesame seeds, and flax seeds. Ditch simple carbs. Avoiding highly processed carbohydrates and added sugars is important as these foods elevate insulin levels, which in turn stimulate HMG-CoA reductase, which is an enzyme in the liver, says Dr. Clotis. When HMG-CoA reductase is revved up, LDL production surges, explains the cardiologist. So try to limit your intake of ultra-processed foods like frozen pizza, chips, white bread, processed desserts like cookies, cakes, and donuts, refined white pasta, and highly processed meats like bacon, sausage, and hot dogs. Manage your triglycerides. Triglycerides are the first form of fat formed from sugars and starches, says Dr. Gundry. A high level of triglycerides, which is 200 milligrams per deciliter and above, is a risk factor for heart disease. Ideally, you should aim to keep your triglycerides below 100 milligrams per deciliter. Healthy lifestyle tweaks like getting more exercise, cutting back on alcohol, quitting smoking, and eliminating trans fats may help lower both triglyceride and LDL levels markedly. First of all, when I read this, I looked up pictures of xanthelasma, and I found a ton of dermatologists before and after pics after removing them. So now you have a risk factor, but you went and removed it. So now your doctor doesn't know that you're a ticking time bomb.
Right.
That's alarming to me. And your condition is just going to go under the radar unless you get tested annually, which a lot of people, frankly, don't.
Yeah.
I talk about this till I'm blue in the face. And these procedures are causing a lot of these diseases to just really go unnoticed. Another thing, this testing every 4 to 6 years is really not sufficient,
Oh, no,
especially
every year.
in this age of easy fix for everything.
Every year, and even more if you can either afford it or if your insurance covers it. Because as you tweak your diet and you make dietary and lifestyle changes, like to the gym and all that, going more to the gym or walking more or whatever, you should be able to see what cause and effect is here.
By the way, researchers warn a popular sugar-free sweetener linked to high rates of heart attack and stroke. But we'll save that for next time because I think that's important as we look towards making a healthier and happier life. And I want you to remember that you only have one life and one body. So you've got to do your best to make it count so your years are full of life and full of health. Information equals transformation. So small steps each day and you'll see a difference. I'm sure of it. All right. Well, that's all the time we have today. Luke, I guess I will talk to you post-surgery.
All righty.
Okay.
Looking forward to hearing about your experiences.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.